Hi everyone, it's Julianne here and welcome back to the Scrapbook Pal channel. This week I'm going to be sharing with you how I created this Christmas slimline scene using some of my favorite new goodies from the Honeybee Stamps Holiday Cheer release. The products that I'm going to be using today include the Santa's Village stamp set, the Woodland Winter Animal stamp set, and finally I'm going to be using the brand new Merry Buzzword stamp and die set. So let's get started. So to start out my slimline card for today, I'm going to start out by creating my scene. So when it comes to scene building, the first thing that you need to decide is which images you're planning on using and what images you want to look as though they are in the front versus the images that you want to look as though they're in the back of your scene. So the way that I like to do this is I like to start out by arranging all of the images that I plan on using on my card. So that way I can decide on the placement of everything, and once I'm happy with how it looks, I'm then going to remove all of the images but the ones that I want to appear as though they're in the front of my scene. So for my card today, the two images that I want to appear that are in the front are going to be Santa and one of those cute little elves. So I'm going to be stamping all of my images today onto a sheet of Express It blending cardstock using some Memento Tuxedo black ink, since I do plan on Copic coloring for my card today. The next part of scene building is masking, which I do know can be a lot and not a lot of people enjoy masking, but scene building and masking are one of my favorite things to do when it comes to card making. So once I have stamped out Santa and that elf, I'm then going to mask off both of those images before I continue with any more of my stamping. Now to make sure that I don't mess up and I forget to mask off my images, I like to, as soon as I'm done stamping them, I like to mask the images that I just stamped, and I do that before I remove the stamps from my MISTI. I have found that this really helps me to not forget to mask my images off because I have done that in the past. So once I have both of those images masked, I'm then going to continue to stamp and mask all of my other images in order to create my Christmas scene. So I did stamp Mrs. Claus as well as that additional elf and bunny off camera, and I have each of those already masked off, and I'm going to start working on stamping the bear, and that's going to go behind the bunny and the girl elf. Now I know my card is already starting to look like a hot mess with all of those masks everywhere as well as those additional stamped lines that are over the mask, but trust me, once I'm done with all of my stamping, removing the mask is the best part about scene building. So once I have that bear all stamped out and masked off, I'm now going to start stamping one of my favorite images from the Santa's Village stamp set, and that's that adorable snowman. I don't know about you, but I absolutely love snowmen. I decorate my entire house in them for Christmas. I honestly just can't get enough of them. So once I have that adorable little snowman stamped out, I'm now going to finish up stamping by stamping those last two images, which are going to be the fox and the reindeer. Now, since these are on the other side of my scene, I'm not going to worry about masking off the snowman since I'm not stamping near him, but if you wanted to just be safe, you could definitely mask him off as well. So once I finally decided on where I want that fox and reindeer to be, I'm just going to stamp both of those down, and then that's going to complete the stamping part of my card for today. I know it was a lot, so thanks for sticking there with me. But now that I'm done with all of my stamping, this is now my favorite part about scene building, and that's where I finally get to remove all of those masks to reveal this beautiful Christmas scene that I've created. I was really going for like all of the animals and Santa and his little helpers all stopped like in the middle of their Christmas huddle, getting all the presents ready to take like a family portrait. That's kind of what I was going for. What do you guys think? Did I achieve that with all of my masking? So the next step in my card for today is Copic Coloring. Now there definitely is a lot of coloring going on in this card since it is such a giant scene and I have used so many images. So I have sped up the coloring process and I will be jumping around in the coloring as well because this video is already so long since I really wanted to show you all of my stamping and masking process in case that's something that you wanted to try out. So for all of my coloring today, I am just going to put on some music so that way you can sit back and enjoy the coloring process. And if you're interested in any of the color combinations that I'm using today, I will have all of my marker caps off to the side of the screen so that way you can follow along, and I'll be right back. So once I have all of my coloring complete, the next step in my card is to fussy cut out my scene. Now each of these stamp sets do have coordinating die sets, but since this is a scene card and I stamped and masked those images all together, I can't really use the dies for this card. So I'm just going to be using a pair of scissors, and I'm just going to fussy cut around each one of those images. Now I have sped up this process for the video, but when it comes to fussy cutting, you definitely just want to take your time going around each one of those images, and that's definitely what I did here, because the last thing I want to do is ruin all of my images after I spent so much time stamping and coloring all of them in. Now I do want to mention I'm just going to be fussy cutting the top part where their heads are. I'm going to leave that bottom white area because I'm wanting that to look like snow. So I'm just going to be fussy cutting the top area. So now that I have everything cut out, the next step in my card is going to be creating my ink blended background. For that, I'm going to be using my favorite color combination, which is Evergreen Bough, Lucky Clover, Pine Needles, and finally my darkest color of Black Soot. So to start out, I'm going to be adding that Evergreen Bough towards the bottom center of my background panel. Now I'm not going to worry about inking all the way to the bottom, since this is going to be covered by that snow area. Now once I have that color down, I'm then going to come in with Lucky Clover, and I'm going to be adding that color right above the Evergreen Bough, and I'm going to be blending those colors together as well. Now to make my background darker, I'm then going to come in with some Pine Needles, and I'm going to be adding that towards the top of my background panel, and then finally I'll be coming in with my darkest color of that Black Soot, and I'm just going to be adding that color to the very top of my panel. Now since these are distress inks and not just the oxides, I need to go back over everything to get a seamless blend. So I'm going to come back in and go over the top portion with that Pine Needles again. And then finally, I'll come back in with some more of that Lucky Clover to blend all of those colors in together. Next, to add some texture as well as some splatter since this is a Christmas card, I'm going to be splattering some Perfect Pearls in the color gold throughout my background. Now to hopefully contain most of that splatter on my background panel and not all over my work surface, I have placed that panel inside of my splat box. Now, if you don't have a splat box, that's perfectly okay. You can definitely use an old box and that will work just the same. So once I'm done with splattering that all over my background, I'm just going to lift that up closer to the camera so you can see just how pretty that gold splatter is all over that ink blended background. So once my background has had some time to dry, I'm now just going to work on adhering my scene portion that I colored in earlier. And for that, I'm going to be adding some liquid adhesive behind that entire panel. And then I'm just going to adhere that down, lining it up with the bottom edges of that background panel. Now, once I have that all adhered, I'm now going to pull out my paper trimmer, and I'm just going to trim off a little bit from those edges just to center my scene a little bit more. And once I'm happy with how that looks, I'm then going to start working on my sentiment. Now, I have to say one of my favorite products that Honeybee Stamps offers has to be their buzzwords. I just love how they all have that one large sentiment, which in this case is going to be the Merry, and then they all have a bunch of those smaller sentiments to go along with the larger sentiment. And most of their buzzwords can actually be mixed and matched since the smaller sentiments are basically generic. Now for my card, I'm going to be using the Merry buzzword, and I have already die cut that out of some red glitter cardstock, and I'm going to be positioning that over my little scene area. And then for my smaller sentiment, I'm going to be stamping Christmas. So that way my sentiment on my card is going to read Merry Christmas. Now once I'm done with my sentiment, the final step in my card for today is I'm just going to be adding some white highlights to each one of my images. And once I feel as though I have enough, that's going to complete my slimline Christmas scene using some of the brand new products from the Honeybee Stamps Holiday Cheer release. I really hope that you enjoyed my card today and that I have inspired you to create your own little scene. If you did like this video, please give it a thumbs up as well as subscribe to the Scrapbook Pal channel for even more card making videos. A list of all of the supplies I used today will all be down in the description box. And as always, I hope you have a wonderful day. I'll see you next time, and happy crafting!